So, before I start this week's video, I just wanted to do a quick recap of the week. Since it is the off season, there wasn't too much going on. There was the Davis Cup finals, however. France beat Belgium in a fifth rubber. Lucas Pouille beat Steve Darcis in straight sets to clinch the Davis Cup for France. France isn't new to the Davis Cup title. They've won it 9 times before, so this is their 10th Davis Cup title. Other than that, Federer was awarded with an honorary doctorate from the University of Basel, so that's pretty cool. So I just wanted to say for this video, I took some feedback from a lot of people and read some comments and watched last week's video actually. And I have to say, even I was falling asleep watching myself sit there for 8 minutes. 9 minutes? 8 minutes. So this week, I really tried to mix it up, go to different places. Trust me, it's like 10 times better at least than the previous video. Let me know in the comments if you like this style better, if there's anything more I can do to make these videos more interesting. But other than that, sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Cognitive Tennis. So the original plan was to film outside today, but as you can see, the weather's not too great. It was actually sunnier early today, which I should have taken advantage of, but I thought it would last longer than this. For those of you that don't know how Vancouver weather works, once it starts raining, it really doesn't stop for like a week. So no filming outside today. And now we're in the car. There was one thing, lighting. There was one thing that I kind of wanted to talk about, and it relates to Roger's season this year. Everyone knows that he's had a great season. I mean, winning 2 Grand Slams, Australian Open, Indian Wells, Miami back-to-back. Then he goes on to win Wimbledon without losing a set. Very few losses this year. And then he goes on to beat Nadal for the 4th time in the Shanghai final and win that Masters 1000 as well as winning the Basel Swiss Indoors. But what made his season so successful? Why was this year maybe Roger's best year ever? Why was he able to make such a good comeback at the age of 36? Why Vancouver? Hi, could I just get a tall Earl Grey tea, please?
Sure. I'll just need 215.
So I was actually gonna film on the balcony of Starbucks, but the patio's closed and they said it was too dangerous and too slippery to open. So we're gonna find another place to film. So, funny story. First of all, stopped raining, so I thought I'd come out to the beach to film a little bit. But yeah, funny story. So, as you guys may have seen from the video, I put my tea on top of the car and proceeded to get in the car and actually drive away with the tea still on top of the car. And it actually stayed on, I think, for a couple blocks, and then I made a right turn, and I heard this thud, and I didn't really know what it was. Turns out it was the tee falling off the car, and I only realized once I got here and had no tee. So lesson learned: don't put things on top of your car when you're getting in the car, because sometimes you'll forget them and you'll lose them forever. Alright, so anyways, so as I was saying, one thing I think Roger's done really well this year, or why he's done really well this year, is because of his scheduling. As you guys know, Roger opted to actually skipped the clay court season. So he skipped all of the Masters 1000s and 500 tournaments, as well as the French Open, which is a Grand Slam event. So he actually gave up a lot of points by doing that. But it ended up paying off in the long run because look how well he did at Wimbledon. He won Halle as well. And he went on to have a pretty good second half of the season as well. But a lot of people are wondering, there's actually a requirement that players have to play Masters 1000s except the Monte Carlo, which is an optional Masters 1000 event. So you have to play 8 of the 9 Masters 1000s. How can Roger just skip the clay court season? Isn't he required to play those tournaments? And the answer is actually no, he's not required to play those tournaments. And that's actually due to an exemption rule, which applies if you meet 3 criteria. So the technical term for the requirements to play those Masters 1000s is the ATP World Tour Masters 1000 commitment. And there's actually an exemption for certain players if you meet certain requirements. So in section 1.08 of the official ATP rulebook for 2017 states a reduction of the ATP World Tour Masters 1000 commitment. And I'll just read it here. So a player's number of ATP World Tour Masters 1000 commitment tournaments shall be reduced by 1 tournament for reaching each of the following milestones. So the first one is 600 matches as of the 1st of January of the commitment year. So you have to have played at least 600 ATP matches. The second requirement is 12 years of service on tour. And the last requirement is that you have to be 30 years of age as of January 1st of the commitment year. So for each of the criteria met, you're actually allowed to not play one of the Masters 1000s that's required. And clearly Federer meets all of these criteria. So here's the actual interesting part that applies to Roger. And I'm quoting this directly from the rulebook. If all 3 conditions are met, then the player has complete exemption from the ATP World Tour Masters 1000 player commitment. So this means that Roger can actually play any or all of the Masters 1000s that he wants. He doesn't have to play all of them. He can actually just cherry pick, essentially, the ones he wants to play. So I think one of the reasons they have this exemption is so that older players will be able to compete at a high level for the tournaments that they play. It's unfair to expect that players that are 30 and above play all of the tournaments that the 20-year-olds and 25-year-olds play. Once a player hits 30 years old, you're considered old for tennis. You're not able to play as many tournaments, otherwise you'll get more injured, and we've seen that from various players that overplay. And I just wanted to also note that Nadal has met this criteria as well, and Djokovic and Murray will meet the criteria next year. And in my opinion, I think this is a really fair rule. I think it's unlikely that we'll see Federer maybe ever play a clay court season again, because why would he? Sorry, that dog just came up to me. Look how well it turned out for him this year. Why would Roger play the clay court season ever again? The clay court season is obviously not one of Roger's strengths. He's only won 1 French Open, and partially that is due to the king of clay, Nadal, just dominating the clay court season. But also, it's not as natural for Federer, and it doesn't suit his game style. Federer likes to play quick points, whereas Nadal obviously likes to grind and wear his opponent down. Oh no, I'm feeling raindrops again. Alright, might be time to go inside. So I mentioned how I thought it was unfair for the ATP to expect players who are over 30 to play all of these Masters 1000s. So I think the reason the other two requirements are there is to promote a sense of loyalty to the ATP. So if you've been on tour for a while and you've been playing all of the required tournaments and you have good standing with the ATP, then you should be rewarded for your longevity on tour. So I guess the main question that comes up after hearing about these exemptions is how is this going to affect the tour in the next few years? So will we still see the Big Four dominate like they have for the last decade and a half? So as a result of these exemptions, I think we'll see the Big Four playing less and less tournaments. And it's simply due to the fact that they're getting older and they're not able to play as many tournaments as they used to be able to play. So an interesting question is, does this mean that the reign of the Big Four is over? Will we see younger players maybe break through, or players that have been close to breaking through previously? Will we see them starting to win Masters 1000s and Grand Slams as well? And from my perspective, I don't actually think so yet. I think slowly that will start to happen, but I don't think so yet. And the reason is that it's not just one person, it's four different people. So we'll likely see at least two of the Big Four play each tournament. And because of that, I think we will see the Big Four still dominate for a while. But it does certainly give a lot of opportunity to those players who are looking to break through, because they don't have to beat three of the Big Four in one tournament to win it anymore. They just have to beat one of them or potentially two of them to win the title. I remember back in 2010 when Berdych made a good run at Wimbledon. He actually beat Djokovic and Federer en route to the finals. But of course, in the reign of the Big Four, he had to play Nadal in the finals, and Berdych actually ended up losing that final, and Nadal won his second Wimbledon. With the exception, of course, of Roger maybe not playing the French Open, I think we'll see all of the Big Four still playing the Grand Slam tournaments for the next couple of years. So players will still have to get through two or potentially three of the Big Four to make the finals. However, for the Masters 1000s, I don't think that'll be the case because of this exemption. I think that maybe we'll see two of the Big Four play every tournament. It won't be all of the Big Four anymore. And I think we did see that this year. Djokovic and Murray were absent from tour. Federer did win the first two Masters 1000s of the year, and Nadal did win the second two. But then we saw Alex Zverev stepping up and win the fifth and sixth Masters 1000s of the year. And then we saw Dimitrov break through in Cincinnati. Federer, of course, beat Nadal in the Shanghai final. And then we saw Jack Sock actually win the last Masters 1000 of the year in Paris. And it's worth noting that none of the Big Four actually completed that tournament. Djokovic and Murray had already finished their seasons. Federer didn't play because of injury, and Nadal had to default halfway through the tournament. So I just wanted to end this video by saying I think this is a good rule. It allows the veterans to play for much longer on tour than if they weren't allowed to skip these tournaments. And it allows the younger players to break through and have more opportunities of getting far in tournaments, especially in this era where we have the Big Four. I think the most interesting part of this rule for the next year is to see whether the Big Four will use this exemption and whether it will make them better in those tournaments that they do play versus getting injured for most of the year because they have to overplay. I think it keeps it exciting, but we'll have to wait till next year to see what happens. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to check out my Twitter and blog posts in the description below.
And bye for now. Wait.
Oh! That was a dumb decision.
Make sure to subscribe. Bye for now.